do you make of some of these headlines when it comes to the market's jumpiness and reactionary tendency? Sometimes it seems like we react a lot. Other times we're not so surprised at this. But today we made a decent move.
Right. So I agree with Mike. We haven't quite hit capacity yet. The other thing that I think is interesting about this is that it shows that the market is still expecting some kind of deal. It might be just a lightweight deal, but we're obviously expecting something. And I think the surprising part here is that China is the one who backed away because they're the ones that have the weak economic data. And I think there is a little bit of an expectation, too, that China's going to hit their own capacity first with weak economic data and have to come to the table. So the fact that China is the one that said, you know what, we're going to put this on pause was probably a little bit of a surprise.
Jim, if China's really panicking, I mean, tweaking their prime rate is not a sign of panic. Or is it?
Well, they've done all sorts of things in China. They're always trying to expand credit without calling it expanding credit. And if you look at the hard data, it really is slipping over there a lot more than the official numbers would suggest. So I think they're hurting. The thing is about China, they're willing to hurt. They're willing to let their people feel more pain than we. Remember, we have an election coming up next year. I'd be surprised if any real trade deal gets done before the election, because that would only give the president ammo to both sides to fire on him. And so, and really, unless you do something on intellectual property theft and technology transfers, these things aren't really going to get settled. But I agree with Michael's point. It's kind of off the headlines now in terms of the market reaction now. We're getting small reactions, not big reactions. As long as we don't slap 25% tariffs on $300 billion worth of goods, I think the market's going to be just fine with little nonsense like the agricultural deputies going back to China.
There has been this pattern of market gets back toward a high, Fed cuts rates, and the cadence has been, okay, that's an opening to get a harder line on trade from the administration. Now, we didn't really see that this time, but I just think that muscle memory is perhaps still there.
Well, the president did say today, I'm not looking for a partial deal. I'm looking for a complete deal, right?
Right. And those headlines preceded the Montana news.
Right.
And so, yeah, exactly. But once again, a Friday when the market, I think, worked really hard to stand still all week is kind of what we saw just give way toward the end.
But it's interesting because our economy looks a little better than theirs does. In fact, it looks a lot better. But Trump has shown a willingness to back off things quicker than they have.
Maybe next week is about Iran and the UN. And that's going to be a huge story, at least in New York. Does that transfer to markets, I wonder?
Right. I mean, that will be one of the bigger stories. I think this week, though, it surprised me even how little we reacted to some of what happened in Saudi Arabia and all of the headlines around Iran. So it'll probably be a story, but I still think the main story here continues to be trade, continues to be if we can make forward progress there, and it continues to be if central banks around the globe are going to come together in more of a coordinated effort and really prop everybody up.